For some time now, I've been dropping hints in videos and in articles and elsewhere about new taxes that I believe could affect people all around the world, and especially in Europe. Well, in this video, I'm finally going to go on the record and discuss exactly which new taxes I believe could impact you in the coming years. Hey guys, I'm Andrew Henderson, and if you'd like to learn how my team and I can help you legally keep more of your own money with lower tax rates, how to get second passports, how to find new opportunities around the world, you can learn more about what we do and how we can help you at nomadcapitalist.com. Now let's talk about a trend that I've been discussing for some time called the global minimum tax. I think this could be something to watch out for in the coming years. And so, as a former U.S. citizen, I'm familiar with the fact that the United States is essentially the only country in the world that taxes its citizens no matter where they live. Now, the misconception that I'm constantly correcting now is that, yes, it is still possible for U.S. citizens to go offshore and dramatically lower their tax rate. It's a bit more complicated, and a lot of people won't be able to pay zero, but they'll be able to pay substantially less. And what's interesting is I was able to pay very little for many years as a U.S. citizen. I'm no longer a U.S. citizen, but when I was, some of my European friends would taunt me and be like, oh, you guys, you got to file your tax returns, ha, ha, ha. Maybe that's why some of them aren't my friends anymore. But anyway, I believe you're going to see a trend, particularly in Europe and in other developed countries, where you're going to have what's called the global minimum tax. So what I've said for some time now is I don't know how many other countries will impose this broad, in-your-face, U.S.-style citizenship-based taxation. I think it's kind of a hard thing to get through, seeing that the United States has had it for well over 100 years. As I always say, taxing citizens no matter where they live is kind of like in the U.S. DNA. After all, it is the best country on earth. And so I don't know how many other countries will get away with that. Australia might try it, or Canada might try it. Maybe some country in Europe, France could decide to do it. Who knows? There aren't that many candidates. There might be a couple. I think it's not out of the realm of possibilities. What I think you might see more countries doing in the next decade or so is the global minimum tax. And the way I came up with this is, obviously there's two sides of tax. There's personal tax and there's corporate tax. Obviously, a lot of the ire that's out there for low tax is directed at multinational corporations. People go out in the streets and they protest how Starbucks isn't paying enough, or Apple's not paying enough, or whatever. But there is an increasing amount of ire being directed at wealthy people, and you're seeing this all around the world. The wealthy should pay their fair share. They need to pay more. They're not paying enough. Even though people like Bill Gates came out and said, "I've paid $10 billion in taxes in my lifetime," it's not enough for many people. He should have paid more, even though he drives on the same roads and sends his kids to the same schools. And so what we're seeing on the corporate side in particular is stuff coming out from groups like the OECD. There's a proposal that came out last summer where they're talking about how to impose minimum taxes on multinational corporations based on where they're selling. Right? So right now, a lot of companies go and set up in Ireland or the Netherlands, or they set up wherever, and they're able to deliver services in other countries or deliver products in other countries, and they can do so in a very tax-optimized way. This new proposal wants to get away with that. Everyone should pay something everywhere that they are. And so there are other proposals that have come out. We read this stuff. This is, the boring existence that we have here is reading some of these tax proposals written by bureaucrats. But if you put it all together, the OECD stuff is some of the biggest stuff, particularly as they have been successful in increasing information sharing across jurisdictions and using it as a push and saying that's a push for higher tax rates. I can get transparency. I think if you live in a country and you choose to say, hey, I'm subject to the laws, all right, fine. If you want to leave the country, that's when they should leave you alone. They should let you shop for any jurisdiction that you want. But these groups have been very vocal, and they've even gone and shut down some countries' zero tax policies. Smaller countries like Andorra were bullied into setting up a tax rate, now as high as 10%. A lot of the countries in the Caribbean that have had offshore financial centers, offshore banks, have been bullied into shutting that down. Now they want them to shut down their citizenship programs. These groups don't care about small countries being successful or having a competitive advantage. They're just a big lobbying group for high-tax countries. And so all of that to say, I think eventually you'll see that trickle down to the personal level. Because if there's one thing that I know politically, it's that these crusaders, particularly crusaders who they want social justice and high taxes and all that, they're never satisfied. Whenever they get one victory, it'll be under the next injustice. They're perpetually injusticed. And so the personal side will come eventually. And what you'll see is, particularly in an era of mobile people, of more and more nomad capitalists or digital nomads or remote workers who can travel while they're working or they're doing jobs in different countries, whatever, you're going to see countries saying, we're losing out on revenue. They've already started saying that by cracking down and being more strict on things like tax non-residents. You know, if you leave Canada, Australia, the UK, it's tougher now. The criteria are tougher than it was 10 or 20 years ago. They're already imposing new criteria. It used to be, and this is a common misconception still, it used to be, oh, you spent less than 6 months in your country, you're fine. The 183-day rule, the days test, as it were. Now they have all kinds of tests in different countries. The center of life test, the economic substance test, the economic interest test. And every country has their own tests, all designed to say, well, hey, even if you're not here, maybe we can tax you somehow. All that also to say, here's the future in my opinion. Countries, or perhaps a block of countries like the EU, can get together and say, you know what? Our deal is everyone should pay 7%. That's the minimum everyone should pay. And where did I get that idea? I got that idea from the corporate proposal on the US side in the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, where they put in what's called the GILTI provision. Now, the GILTI was higher than 7%, but you can make up whatever number you want, 7, 10, 12 and a half, whatever. You figure out whatever the politically sustainable tax rate that everyone should pay is. And here's how it works. Oh, you moved to Dubai? Well, that's cool, but they have zero tax. And we weren't able to bully them. So, you know, you're a proud French citizen. You know what? Just send us the 12 and a half. Oh, you moved to, you know, some country with a 5% tax rate? All right, 12 and a half minus 5, send us the 7 and a half. You know, and adjust as appropriate. And that could be a way, you know, for blocks like the European Union to keep people in the system. So if it's 12.5%, oh, you moved to Bulgaria? Okay, well, now you're exempt. You can pay their low 10% tax because, you know, they're one of us. And if we need something, like, they'll, you know, help us. And, like, you know, we're cool. I know it may sound a little weird. It may even sound a little conspiratorial. But if you read all the things that are being put out, and if you look at the stuff that's happened, you know, that these high-tax lobbying groups have put through, I don't think it's unrealistic. And so what does that mean? Well, it means that everyone who's taunted me that, you know, them being German means they'll never have to pay a penny, you know, the piper may need to be paid eventually. And so for those of you who have put off getting your citizenship insurance policy, even getting your second residence, those are going to be increasingly important. I think in this era, you probably need a tax residence for most countries. You definitely want a second residence, a place you can go, a place where you have an address, or a home, or a real estate investment. And I think everyone of any kind of wealth should have a second passport. Because in the United States, for example, you have candidates who now want a wealth tax. Wealth taxes in parts of Europe are going away, but it's not to say that certain countries may not bring them back. The political winds right now are really against the wealthy. And so, listen, you know, if you're just, you know, working a job and you're not, you know, have a lot of savings, this may not apply to you. But if you are the 7 or 8 figure entrepreneur that we talked to, if you're looking at selling your business, if you're looking at, you know, being an investor and you have money to invest, the political winds are against you. And I think that that's eventually going to culminate as this anti-wealth, you know, fervor continues into public policy where everyone's going to pay. And there's not going to be a very easy way to pay zero. And it may come a time when you have to choose between paying 12.5% and being German, or not being German and going and living in Dubai and paying zero. I do think that that day may come. And so I think that you're going to have kind of a big developed countries versus the rest of the world, where the developed countries will continue to apply bullying pressure to foreign banks and everywhere else. Which is why I think that if you're going to be banking overseas, you want to be in stable jurisdictions. The days of going and banking in Belize or the Seychelles are over. You want to be in stronger jurisdictions than that. But you want to have those other financial tools. You want to have your tool chest ready. And as I often say, you can't buy insurance after your house burns down. Okay? Some of these things come very quickly. Some of these things even come retroactively. So you want to have your tool chest of passport, residence, tax residence. and foreign bank accounts. We're not trying to hide anything from anyone. They call me the goody two-shoes of the offshore business because I like to play by the rules, because I think it's the pragmatic, smart thing to do, even if the rules are unfair, okay? So set yourself up. If you're not ready to move overseas now, or even if you are moving overseas now, have your plan B in place, even if you're not an American, because this is something that I think is going to come. I see Western countries imposing it. Again, blocks like the EU, you want to be prepared. How can Nomad Capitalist help you? 4 ways. Number 1, subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell to make sure you get our new video every day. Number 2, get a copy of Nomad Capitalist, the book. You'll learn a lot of my personal experiences over a dozen years of studying this stuff, as well as exactly some of the strategies that you can use to build your Nomad Capitalist plan. Number 3, if you're not sure where to start, but you want to come and learn from my team and I, you want to come and mingle with like-minded people, learn more about our live conference, Nomad Capitalist Live. It's coming up soon. And number 4, if you want some help right now because you've got a burning issue, you need something solved, you want to lower your taxes, get a second passport, or build the Nomad Capitalist lifestyle of your dreams, go to nomadcapitalist.com and click on Become a Client.